always be.
हॅलो.
येस सर.
माझा आवाज येतोय का?
येतोय.
So let us start. Good morning, friends. Today we are concluding this last session of the indirect tax refresher course being organized by Pune branch of WIRC. I am thankful to CA Samir Ladda and CA Kashinath Pathare for involving me in the organizing this program, structuring this program, selection of topics and selection of esteemed faculties. Friends, I hope you have enjoyed all the sessions, all the lectures, and I'm sure you will definitely have a great takeaway when after the course. Some of you might have found the course tending to be a little basic one, but what we thought while preparing the structure of the program, that now GST is about 4 years old. It will celebrate its fourth birthday on the 1st of July coming, and therefore it needs, and basically the course name is a refresher course. We thought that let us have some refreshing the basic ideas, the basics of GST law, and therefore instead of having the various critical issues of the GST this year, we have thought that we will again refresh our memories of 2017, when we have a lot of deliberated upon the type of time of supply, place of supply, exemptions available, definitions, and like that. So in this way the course was structured, and again I am thankful to CA Kashinath Pathare to having consensus within a very short period of time with me on the selection of topics and the faculties. Today also we are dealing with two such basic topics, having a practical orientation, the one with has having how to face a departmental audit by CA Ravi Kumar Somani, and then place of supply, a very important topic from CA Vishal Poddar. Now, with this background, I now request CA Samir Ladda, Chairman of Pune branch, to give his welcome address.
Thank you, Dongre sir. Today's speaker, Ravi Somani. Today's MOC, past Chairman of Pune branch, C. Jagdishji Dongre, and all the other participants. Welcome on today's fifth session and last session of indirect tax refresher course. I personally thanks all of you for giving your time, hearing all the lectures and participation throughout this refresher course. Today, earlier some different speaker were there as per schedule, but due to unavoidable reasons, some death of his close relatives, at last moment we have to shift the speaker. And I personally thanks on behalf of Pune branch and all of participants to Ravi for giving last moment time to and adjusting this his time for Pune branch for last refresher course of last day. I give special sincere thanks to Jagdish Dongre sir for coordinating such a wonderful refresher course of 5 days. As you have coordinated all the 5 sessions for all the speakers along with the Kashinath. Thanks a lot, Jagdish sir, on behalf of all the Pune branch. Dear participants, after this refresher course in this month, we have 2 virtual national conference, one on DAB and one of women's empowerment. Soon the dates will be announced. You are also requested to please join the session of DAB, and for ladies members, you can also join the women's conference. Within 2 or 3 days, we will announce the dates of both the conference. We are expecting to announce the refresher course direct tax in the first week of July. Kashinath is working on that. So you are also requested to wait for 2-3 days, maybe within 4 days, we will announce the refresher course direct tax. Also on 1st July, Pune branch will celebrate lot of functions. If any of you are voluntarily interested to contribute for the 1st July different ideas, please communicate with me. My cell number is already on Pune branch of ICI. Please share your ideas to how we should celebrate the CA day. Also, please give your feedback about this refresher course. How you feeling about this indirect refresher course? So that if any corrections or modifications required, as a Pune branch committee, we will definitely accept your suggestion in a positive way. Thanks a lot again. Wish you happy learning. Over to you, Jagdish sir, for further process.
Thank you, Samir. Now I would like to introduce our faculty, CA Ravi Kumar Somani. I know Ravi for about last 4 or 5 years when the when the GST was introduced, and we have had a lot of programs at Sarasbag CP Study Circle. And I think about the first 2-3 speakers, Ravi was there, and we were all the participants of the study circle were quite impressed about this young chartered accountant having so much in-depth knowledge of the law, which is just promulgated. So he is the one of the, I would rate him one of the best faculties in Pune about the GST. He is a chartered accountant, and he is pursuing LLB. So that's a very, I like that, because a person is always a student throughout his life. And after completing chartered accountant, he is pursuing the LLB. He is extremely passionate indirect tax professional with experience in performing health check reviews, providing advisory and litigation support in the matters concerning indirect taxes. He has given various lectures at various trade and professional forums, ICAI, National Insurance Academy, etc. He has authored 2 books on indirect taxes. The one is Practical Guide to GST Audit and Certification. Recently, 4th edition of this book was released. It's great. Then Self-Study Guide to Indirect Taxes, published by Asia Law House. He has written various analytical and issue-based articles, research papers, and legal updates on indirect tax matters, which are published in various newsletters and online platforms. He loves doing extensive research on the subject and solving critical indirect tax problems. His mission is to spread indirect tax knowledge, solve indirect tax problems, and to raise voice against unscrupulous practices. Great, Ravi. This, you have also imbibed a social cause into this professional area of practice. The raising voice against unscrupulous practices is really a chartered accountant should always like to do. So with this introduction, now over to you, Ravi, for your session.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jagdish sir. I hope my voice is audible, sir.
Yes, Ravi, you are audible.
Okay. So at the outset, firstly, I would like to thank Jagdish sir, who is a master organizer, not just in Pune branch, even in Sarasbag. We have seen every time, at a particular date in a month that, where seminars used to take place. We are eagerly looking for the seminars to happen so that we can meet and greet each other. I would like to thank Kashinath Pathare, for giving me this opportunity, and for, what Samir Bhai has mentioned, for coordinating this entire event and the program. Then certainly I would like to thank our chairman, Samir Bhai, who has been doing tremendous work, I must say. Despite this COVID thing, branch has not stopped working for the members. So I think we should really acknowledge the efforts which the committee members are putting for the betterment of all of us. And this program is one of the small things that has been done, apart from so many things which the branch is doing. So most thankful for giving me this opportunity to be a part of this session. So today's topic that we will be discussing is a very unique topic. how to face departmental audit. So when Kashinath called me, I thought this could be very relevant topic for all of us, because now this departmental audit in GST has started. So this departmental audit under GST is little different from how the audits used to be there under the VAT regime. In fact, we need to wait and watch how this is going to be there in the GST regime. Now, to give a brief understanding, today we will be covering on legal framework of the GST audit by the department. Mind you, we are covering the GST audit from the departmental perspective today. We will also be looking at the preparation and the approach. So today's webinar, I would be sharing a lot of practical insights apart from the legal aspects of the GST audit, which a chartered accountant must know when the department is conducting the audit. So how do they face department in the entire process of GST audit? So this is what we will be covering in today's session. Now, to start with, departmental audit, for example, in VAT, there was a concept of assessment and not audit. Assessment used to happen every year for each SSC. I think now they must have completed 15, 16 and 16, 17, 17, 18 is ongoing. So, which is something which used to happen every year, and they never used to come to the premises of the taxpayer. It is other way around, where a taxpayer used to take his books, records, documents, and go to the premises of the department and get the assessment completed. And that is where, the professionals, all of us used to support our clients in, getting the assessment smoothly done. Now here it is exactly reverse, where it is audit and not assessment. It is a lot different than, general verification of numbers. Department is now going to get into the technicalities of the law, be it supply, place of supply, and all other technicalities. We all know the number of amendments that has taken place. So it is a big task for us. I would actually congratulate for conducting a basic course, because we need to go back and refresh ourselves or what was there in 17, 18, and just put our thoughts gather our thoughts at a place, so that we are aware about how to we at least the law part of it. Now, department has given certain documents and all those things relating to audit. That is all we'll be covering in the session. So first, I would like to put the context very clear. I hope my screen is visible to all of you. I have shared the screen. Is it visible? Okay, I understand that the screen is visible. 1 minute. Yeah, okay, I'm receiving the comments that it is there. Yeah, so see, there are various things that the department is empowered to do. Now, one of it is audit. Now, let me tell you, there is an assessment which is governed by Chapter 12. There is an investigation which is governed by Chapter 14. There is audit which is governed by Chapter 13. Then there is Chapter 15, which actually talks about demands and recoveries. And there is a particular section in Chapter 14, which talks about this access to business premises. All these are totally different. Let me tell you, department has power under Chapter 12, Chapter 13, Chapter 14 to verify the books, accounts, documents, information, do scrutiny, verification, examination for a taxpayer. Today discussion, we are not going to talk about investigation or assessment. Our focus is on the audit part of the verification from the department. Now, whenever we need to understand that assessment is done by your jurisdictional officer, whomsoever is a jurisdictional superintendent, ACDC, commissionerate, which is a separate commissionerate altogether. Please understand, it is a separate commissionerate. Investigation is being done by totally a different commissionerate, which is a DGGI, Director General of Investigations under GST. Audit is also conducted by a totally different commissionerate. It is a Director General of Audit, which is totally a different commissionerate, totally a different DG office. So it is not like the administrative role and the administrative functions are absolutely divided under the department's various wings. Now, but one important thing is that after all this investigation and whatever that is done, eventually it lead to a show cause notice. Now that show cause notice ultimately gets coming under the chapter 15 of the law, which is demands and recoveries. Now, to understand the legal framework of the departmental audit, these are the various sections. Then there is a departmental audit manual, which has been issued in 2019 by CBIC. There is a quality assurance review document issued by CBIC. There is a trade circular issued by Maharashtra GST authorities, circular number 13T on the departmental audit. As a chartered accountant, although you are attending this webinar, it is highly recommended that you go through all this legal text and the legal provisions yourself to understand the crux of this entire concept of departmental audit. Now, to understand departmental audit, certainly the first and foremost thing that we need to know is what is audit. What do we mean by the term audit under GST? This was already discussed, debated, a lot of things was talked about this when we were looking at GST audit by the professionals. Now, let me give you a flavor of the same definition from the departmental's perspective. So, audit term is defined under section 2, subsection 13 of the CGST Act, which says that audit means examination of records, returns, and other documents maintained or furnished by a registered person under this act or the rules made thereunder or under any other law for the time being enforced. Now, I would like to explain this particular provision a little bit in more detail. See, this understanding legal provision is the most important or the fundamental and the foundation of this entire discussion. Because once you know the law, let me tell you, nobody can beat you. Even you can go and sit in front of commissioner and talk with confidence because you know the law. And that is why I'm going to give some focus on the law part of today's understanding. Examination of records, returns, or other documents, which means that under the departmental audit, at the most what department can examine is the records, returns, and other documents, which means can department come to the premises of the assessee and can they say that I would like to do your inventory verification, I would like to do your plant verification, I would like to verify the cash? Answer is no, they cannot do that. They have the power to only examine records, returns, and other documents, which is coming from the definition of the term audit, that are maintained or furnished by the registered person under this act or rules made thereunder. What records? Only those records which are made under GST Act. But then there is an extension to say that even the records maintained under any other law for the time being enforced can also be examined. Now, I would like to say that yes, which means department has a power to ask for your income tax return, your CARO report, your 3CD, and all the other documents that you have filed under any other law also they can ask. But what about those records that are neither under GST Act nor under any other law? Let us say there is some management report, there is some management MIS. In my view, department has not got power to ask for some internal audit reports or other reports which are not governed either under the GST law or under any other law for the time being enforced. This is very important, friends. Please note this particular point. This will help you because at times you will see in the course of departmental audit that the tremendous information and sometimes unnecessary information is also being demanded, and that is where you must raise your voice against the, you should know the provisions of the law. Now, what they will verify after examining these records is to verify the correctness of turnover declared, taxes paid, refund claimed, and input tax credit availed, which is basically, the entire gamut of the GST law. But then that is given a very wide implication by saying that his compliance with the provisions of this act or rules, which means that they have got a wide power of verification as far as various things under the GST law, all the provisions, compliance to all the provisions they can verify. Now, very important to note that there is section 65 of the CGST Act, which actually is the main section pertaining to audit. Now, section 65 says that the audit to be done by the commissioner or any officer authorized by him, which means that the audit, the right, the power to do the audit has been given on the commissioner. So basically, is it that commissioner has to come to all the premises and do the audit? Answer is no. He can further authorize to the officers below him. That authorization can be given either by way of a general order or by way of a specific order. General order would mean that they would take all the assessees of Pune and divide it among various officers and give the authorization, which would be a general order. I understand that document was released for Maharashtra authorities. Even for central tax, that document was released. More or less, a lot of assessees already know whether they are going to be covered under audit or not, or by a specific order. Maybe for a particular assessee they want to do an audit, they can also have a specific order. But that order is important, please understand. May undertake audit of any registered person for such period, at such frequency, and in such manner as may be prescribed. May undertake audit of any registered person. Please focus here. I would like to tell 2 to 3 important points here. One is that if somebody is not registered in GST, department cannot do the audit of that particular taxpayer. Please understand, because section 65 at the most give rights to do the audit for a registered person. There cannot be an audit for an unregistered person. For unregistered person, possibly they will do assessment, they will do scrutiny, or they may do investigation, but certainly they cannot do audit. Very important aspect that the audit is a registered person wise, which means, let us say a company is having a registration in Maharashtra, for which they have taken a GST registration. They have also got registration in Karnataka, Haryana, and Uttar Pradesh. They cannot do the audit of all these other registered persons, because audit, it doesn't use the term person. The term person under the GST law is different from the term registered person. Term person covers an entity. Term registered person covers only a specific registration. So when you have done an audit, when the department is doing an audit for Maharashtra, they cannot ask the information of Karnataka, Uttar Pradesh, and Haryana. Similarly, when, let us say, sometimes a company is a group company which have multiple entities. So when the audit has been assigned for entity A, in the course of audit, they cannot ask the information of entity B, entity C, entity D, even if it is a sister concern of the same group. Very important. For such period, at such frequency, in such a manner as may be prescribed. Somebody may ask, sir, is it prescribed? I would say, yes, it is prescribed. Where it is prescribed? Department has issued there is rule 101 where there is a format and other things are prescribed. There is a departmental audit manual of about 150 pages where in detail they are prescribed about the frequency and the period. What they mention: you cannot do the audit for more than 3 to 4 days for a small taxpayer, more than 5 to 6 days for a medium taxpayer, more than 7 to 8 days for a large taxpayer. So this is very important for such period. Long back, we have seen in one of the client's case where department started the audit, and for 15 days, 20 days, they were daily coming to the assessee for the audit, or assessee's premises for the audit. The important question is that, do they have power to come and do the audit for 15 days, 20 days, or whatsoever? There is a timelines which are being provided under the departmental audit manual, and in my view, department for a small taxpayer cannot come. I think somebody has to please put it on mute. So in my view, department cannot do audit for more than 3 to 4 days for a small taxpayer. What is small taxpayer? Unfortunately, they have not defined in the audit manual, but I can tell you broadly is that below 5 crores would be a small taxpayer. This is what that QRMP scheme and other places where they have termed it to be a small taxpayer. Up to 50 crores could be a medium taxpayer, and beyond 50 crores could be a large taxpayer, or beyond 100 crores could be a large taxpayer. This is extremely important that we must know. Next is that the officers referred to in subsection 1 may conduct audit at the place of business of the registered person or in their office. Now, this is very, very important, that audit can at the most be completed at the place of business of a taxpayer. It cannot be conducted at a residence of a taxpayer. What is the meaning of the term place of business? The term place of business is also defined in the GST law. I have just portrayed it over there, section 2, subsection 85. It says go down, warehouse, and all this where you maintain the books and all these things. But then any other place which is not the one that is registered under the GST portal, department has no power to go and do the audit over that particular place. They may also have a choice to do the audit at their own premises, that is at the department also. And let me tell you, there is something that has been talked about in the departmental audit manual, wherein they have mentioned that for small taxpayers, department would prefer to do the audit at department only rather than going to the assessee's premises, which is a welcome move, because nobody wants unnecessary hassle or in a day-to-day operations any issues. So I would also share the quote that has been given in the audit manual in this regard. Now this is about the place where the audit can also be carried out. Now access to business premises, which is a section 71, because when the department is going to come for audit, they are going to access your business premises as well. Now here it says that any officer under this act authorized by the proper officer not below the rank of joint commissioner. So any person who is coming to the business premises of a taxpayer, he must carry an authorization which is given by an officer not below the rank of joint commissioner. It is our duty as a taxpayer to ask and check that authorization, whether you have the authorization. And authorization must be given by the right officer so that they have eligibility to come to the business premises. Very, very important. To inspect books of accounts, documents, computer programs, computer software, whether installed in a computer or otherwise, and such other things has to be read in the context in which it is being given. I will not go into the legal interpretation. All of you are aware about the principle of ejus dem generis in this regard. But one important point I would like to highlight, this is a practical situation what we have seen. There was one departmental officer, he told that, sir, I want the tally backup of your client. So we were worried. Then we checked with the client that would you be okay to give the tally backup? The client straight away tell no, because giving tally backup is giving a business information. And by any means, if that tally backup goes in the hands of a competitor, then it is the entire details of a taxpayer is split open, from whom they are purchasing, what price they are purchasing, to whom they are selling. So there was an apprehension from a taxpayer that we cannot give a tally backup to the department. But then what we have seen is the definition of the term audit is very wide. And here they are saying that you can also inspect computer software and all those things. But when we actually look at it in more detail, I would just like to go back 2 slides. Can you see here, at the most, department can verify records, returns, and other documents. Is it mentioned here that department can examine the tally backup or a computer software or an accounting software? Answer is no. When they can verify the software? Only when they come to your premises. Are you getting it? So this information is given only in section 71. It is not given in the definition of audit, which means that department can verify or inspect your books of accounts using your software only at your premises. They cannot ask for a backup. They may ask for a soft copy of the records, which we can give it in an Excel form, but certainly they cannot ask for softwares and backups and all those things. Audit has to be conducted in a manner of an audit, not like an investigation. We have seen cases where department comes for audit and the behavior is as if they are an investigation officer, starting to do search and as if all are sitting only to do a fraud with the GST. So that should not be the approach. It has to be just like an auditor. Auditor is a watchdog where you just verify information to the satisfaction of your various, for the purpose for which you are doing the audit. Very important. So trial balance and all these things is what they can examine when they come to the business premises. Now here, one important aspect, 1 minute. Yeah, one important aspect to be looked at when it comes to departmental audit is option given to conduct audit either at the place of business of registered person or so this is exactly the provision which I was talking about. Now this is a para 5.7.7 of GST audit manual. It is mentioned very categorically here that in view of emphasis on trade facilitation, intelligent enforcement, and providing non-intrusive environment to taxpayers, it has been decided to move from the present system of premises-based audit to desk-based office audit in case of small category of taxpayers. It has been decided, which means in case of a small taxpayer whose turnover is less than 5 crore, if the officer wants to visit the premises, in my view, we can use para 5.7.7 of GST audit manual and say that you're not authorized. This is exactly what is being mentioned in the manual. However, in case of non-cooperation of taxpayers, premises-based audit may be carried out after approval by the commissioner. Obviously, the suggestion would be that we do not want to cause any hindrance in the audit conducted by the department. The idea is to support department in the departmental audit. I would always recommend that if they want to visit a premises, we should not stop them. We can always allow them. But then if it is things are going out of control, then certainly these are the tools that are there with us that we can use at a right timing. Very important is that the registered person shall be informed by way of a notice of not less than 15 working days. I'm sure a lot of you must have received departmental audit notices, which I think in form ADT01, where they have issued notice and they have asked, please give the information in 3 working days, 7 working days. Not correct. Please visit our premises in 3 working days. This is exactly what has happened with us as well. Because especially with the state GST commissionerate or state officers, with center at least there is some leeway we are seeing, but we have seen some problems with center as well. But center, it is unimaginable. A letter comes today and they ask to come tomorrow. This is not the way. There is a time limit given of 15 days to be given for an assessee, at least 15 days before the conduct of an audit about this things is what is required, and this is how the audit is to be conducted. Very important, which I always say, that in the course of conducting departmental audit, we must coordinate with the department. Somebody may ask, sir, what happens if we don't give information, or what happens if we don't give information on a timely basis? What if we beat around the bushes? Let me tell you, not a right strategy. Absolutely not a right strategy. First impression is the best impression with the department. And I would always suggest that a lot of work has to go today, rather than waiting till the notice for the audit to come and all those things. We should have all our records, documents kept in a proper manner. And the first time they ask the information, we should give it in such a manner so that the department must get an understanding that yes, okay, they are absolutely organized and compliant taxpayers. They have got some powers, let me tell you. And this is again coming out in the audit manual, which says that note sent to executive commissionerate for taking appropriate action. What could be appropriate action? They can send the details to the DGGI, where the intelligence team can straight away come and raid the premises. They can start the search and seizure activities. Inclusion in the risk parameters. If they add your name in the risk parameter, that is the client's name in the risk parameters, then that would be termed as a risky client. Once it is termed as a risky client, then possibly every year they would like to do the audit. The frequency of audit would be much more than any other clients. There was one issue faced by one of our clients where the DG ARM has marked it as a red flag. Of course, that was a very, very genuine client, MNC company, but it was their risk parameter, some sort of MIS, some report they got. Sometimes this analytics is more dangerous than actuals, and they have marked it as a risky assessee. It took us 6 months of pain, and beating around the bushes from pillar to post, meeting commissioner, chief commissioner, writing letters, representations to finance ministers, meeting the DG ARM top officers in Delhi for that to get resolved. So the complexities are very high, and it is always recommended to not go into the bad books of the department. Very wonderful thing which is written in departmental audit section 65 is that audit shall be completed within a period of 3 months from the date of commencement of the audit. You may say, yeah, okay, for the first time, department has, given some time limit to the officers to close things, which was also very reasonable time, 3 months. Okay, they have also given another thing that commissioner is satisfied that audit in respect of such registered person cannot be completed within 3 months. He may, for reasons to be recorded in writing, extend for another 6 months. So 3 months plus 6 months, in total, department has got 9 months to complete the audit. Now here, I would like to highlight that the additional 6 months is not automatic. The additional 6 months is not voluntary. It is commissioner who has to give it in writing for reasons to be known if he is so satisfied that another 6 months are required to conduct the audit. Do you have a right to ask for that information? In my view, you can apply for RTI. In places where the matter goes to the court on this particular point or similar aspect, you can certainly ask, the court can certainly ask for producing such written document at that point of time from that commissioner at that time to be there, to be granting this additional period of 6 months. Very, very important aspect. So 3 months plus 6 months from the day when the audit is commenced, within 9 months maximum the audit has to be completed, which means from a date the audit is commenced, within 9 months they have to give you the ADT02, that is the audit report. Someone may ask, sir, what is the date of commencement? That is where they have done the problem. Now, the date of commencement, it says that the date on which the records or other documents called for by tax authorities are made available by the registered person or the actual institution of the audit at the place of business, whichever is later. Now, how do I know whether the records which I have given are complete in all respects? Because the way department is asking for information is that first they will ask you 5 documents. After you have given 5 documents, they will ask you another 10 documents. After you have given 10 documents, they will ask another 10 documents. And then they will say after 2 months, okay, now we want to visit your place. So when is the audit commencing? You are saying that after the assessee has given all the information to the department, that is the point we will say the audit is commenced. But you have not intentionally mentioned in the law when you would say that all the information is given. So that is again a big time anomaly in the law. That is why what we practice in our office is that whenever the departmental auditor asks for any information, we write categorically in our letter reply that please give us all information that you want at once, so that we can make available all the information to you at once without any delay and without any back and forth movement, which will ensure in the smooth and proper conduct of this entire audit. Write this in reply letter, make it a standard paragraph. But of course, in my view, once you have given the information, you should certainly ask the officer in every reply, please confirm whether any further information is required or this is the final information. Ask in every letter. You can tomorrow say that I have asked in each and every letter whether this information is final or what more is required. Let me tell you, there is a good chance of the decisions coming on the jurisdiction on all these aspects in your favor once you have all this documentation with you. Of course, because of this COVID and all those things, you are all aware, Supreme Court has given the extension. So I think right from March 2020, even today, that extension order of Supreme Court is there, wherein they have given a general extension which is applicable for departmental officers. The same extension is also applicable for assessees. Of course, CBIC has also issued a notification in this regard, wherein all actions and the compliances thereto have been extended up to 30th June 2021. So that is, I would say, this period will not be counted for the purpose of that calculation. But for your longer term, it is important for you to know that these are the provisions that are there in the Act. Let me tell you, this is there in the Act. I am not talking about rules. This is there in the statute book of the CGST Act. As I've already mentioned, when the department is doing the audit, it is the duty of the assessee to make the necessary facility, a proper room, infrastructure must be made available to the department with all the records, documents, whatever they require for conducting the audit. and timely assistance, timely completion is what taxpayer must look at. But then what has been seen, you give necessary facility, but don't overdo it. See, unfortunately, we fear department. That is the biggest problem. I think this generation or now things are changing, because gone are the days where department could do anything just like that, and there's nobody. There have been so many Supreme Court judgments now coming back and forth. Radhakrishna Industry was latest about 2 months back, wherein Supreme Court is not accepting, or high courts are not accepting in situations or cases where department is using their powers in an incorrect manner. There was a client where department, it was a restaurant, so department wanted to come with his family 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, have dinner, lunch. When we go and check with client, why are you entertaining all this? No, sir. Our sir has told we should cooperate with them. Cooperation is one. But then over cooperation or unnecessary thing, in my view, is not required. That would only make the officer believe that something is wrong. You give within the force of law whatever is there, but unnecessary and over this thing is not required. I think this is the approach that we need to change as chartered accountant. This is an approach certainly we must change as a chartered accountant. Another wonderful provision on conclusion of audit. Please pay attention. On conclusion of audit, the proper officer shall within 30 days inform the registered person about findings, rights, and obligation and reason for such finding in Form ADT 02. Who is the proper officer? Proper officer for this is ACDC, which means that your Form ADT 02 can be issued only by Assistant Commissioner or Deputy Commissioner. Where this is written? This is written by virtue of Section 5 of the CGST Act, Section 4 of Section 5 of the CGST Act, as read with Circular 3 of 2017. Very important. Now, if a superintendent or inspector is giving you the ADT 02, you can simply tear it and throw it in a dustbin. It is of no use because it is invalid. So what is important is that this has to come from ACDC. Second very important thing is that it says it must be given within 30 days from the date of conclusion of audit. Unfortunately, what is the date of conclusion of audit is not mentioned in the law anywhere. This is such a big, dichotomy, or I would say anomaly in the law, the way it is drafted. You say something to be completed within 30 days of conclusion of audit. You have defined what is commencement of audit, which was vague. You have told conclusion of audit, but what do you mean by conclusion of audit is not defined anywhere. So when we are submitting our letters to the department, in the end of the audit, we should constantly ask, sir, can we assume the audit to be now concluded? Kindly reply, is the audit concluded? We have given all the information. Please let us know when the audit would be concluded. Because once the audit is concluded, within 30 days, this particular thing needs to be given. Where the audit results in detection of any tax not paid, short paid, erroneously refunded, obviously they have a power to issue a show cause notice, which can be issued under Section 73 or under Section 74. 73 can be issued by superintendent, 74 can be issued by assistant commissioner or a deputy commissioner. Okay, so see, lunch and all is fine. What I'm saying is basic food, basic arrangement, cab facility, all those things are required. I'm not denying that. I'm only saying, don't treat them like, unko damad ji jaise treat mat karo. Behave professionally. That is more important. Periodicity of audit. Audit to be conducted for a financial year or part thereof or multiples thereof. This is what is given in the manual. It can be for one financial year. Like for example, for one client, we have received the audit for 2 years at a time. Possible. They can ask for 2 years. It is actually good in a way, because for 2 years with one single effort, for 2 years straight away, you are able to complete it off. Now, one beautiful thing that you must know as far as departmental audit is concerned is that departmental audit is not based on turnover. Earlier, they used to select assessees based on turnover. More than 500 crore, we will do every year. More than between 100 crore to 300 crores, whatever, we will do once in 3 years. Less than 100 crore, we will do once in 5 years, whatever. There was criteria which was given in the central excise law. In GST law, someone may ask, sir, is there any turnover criteria? Answer is no. Let me tell you, there is no turnover criteria on how an assessee will get selected, how many times an assessee will get selected for the audit. It is a risk-based selection approach which they are following under GST as compared to the turnover-based selection which was there under the excise and service tax regime. Extremely important. What is the risk-based selection? They have got so much of information. I'll tell you one example, what they are doing. They will look at the cash versus credit ratio. So let's say you are paying 100 rupees tax. How much of the 100 rupees you are paying in cash? How much of the 100 rupees you are paying in credit? If a assessee is, always paying everything only through credit, they will term it as a risky assessee. Or only 10 rupees he is paying through cash and 90 rupees he is paying through credit, they may doubt it. So they will look at cash to credit ratio, they will look at ITC to purchases ratio, they will look at tax to sales ratio, they will look at ITC to sales ratio. Various ratios are done, analytics is done, and based on that, there is a separate analytics team who will generate the reports and give the reports to the audit commissionerates so that the assessees can be selected. Theme-based selection is also possible. Okay, this year let us target automobile. This year let us target engineering. This year let us target FMCG. It is possible the department can opt for a theme-based selection also. Deferment for accredited taxpayers. There would be certain taxpayers who would be termed as accredited taxpayers, which means they are the compliant taxpayers. There was a concept of compliance rating system which was supposed to come. Unfortunately, that has never come till now. But in those cases, they will defer the audit and they will do it only once in 3 years. This is what department has mentioned. Unfortunately, they have never accredited anybody till now. This is the beauty. 20% cases will be selected based on the local risk parameters, which means the local Pune Audit Commissionerate would have the choice to select the 20% cases based on the local risk parameters. Let me tell you, in Pune, there are 2 audit commissionerates that will be there: Pune Audit 1, Pune Audit 2. Audit 1 and Audit 2 are different commissionerates. Let me tell you, Pune Audit 1 is a charge of, I think, Pune and Kolhapur, and Pune Audit 2 is a charge of Pune and Goa, or vice versa. But then one is Pune and Kolhapur, one is Pune and Goa. What are those 20% additional risk parameters? If you are delaying to give the information, documents, inconsistency in filing your returns, some investigation is going on, some anti-profiteering is going on against you, or under some other law there is some discrepancy that has taken place and there is an exchange of information with the income tax authorities. So these can be various things. There's a big list of the local risk part. That is why we say file your returns on time. Inconsistency in filing of returns is one aspect. You can tell your client, if you're not filing your return on time, monthly returns, there is a high probability you will be selected in the 20% risk, local risk parameters for the purpose of audit. File your returns before 20th of every month. So extremely important that we must know. Small things can have a higher repercussions. What is the methodology to do the audit? They will first do a taxpayer profiling. There will be a desk review. There will be an audit plan, audit verification, audit conclusion. Certainly, I would not like to teach audit to auditors. Just like what we have read in our CA final, or the way we do our internal audits and statutory audits of our clients, right from profiling to desk review to what I would say, analytical checking, to field work, to questionnaires, internal control questionnaires, I would say drafting of the report, submitting the draft report, discussing the draft report, sending the final report. So all these parameters and protocols are there in the manner in which they would be conducting the audit. This is a broad procedure in which department is going to do the audit. Audit to be selected based on risk parameters. I've already told this. Audit to be issued ADT01 in 15 days prior to commencement. 15 days time must be given. Audit to commence at the premises of taxpayer or department. It can commence either at department or at taxpayer. Correct. Taxpayer submit the information. Information needs to be submitted. Department sends ADT01A for intimation in case that is required. Taxpayer to submit the reply to the department. Department will say ADT01B with their findings, and then the final audit report will come in ADT02 within 30 days of conclusion of the audit. Depending upon the reply that you are giving to the audit para and the audit report, it would be decided whether to issue a show cause notice or not to issue show cause notice. Out of our experience, we've seen largely they go for show cause notice, but let me tell you, a good handling of audit can actually avoid show cause notices as well. But all depends on what is the case and circumstances. Certain tips I'll be sharing. Now, this is exactly the format. I will not go into the format. This is how ADT01. Can you see, for one of our client, they have done it for both financial year 17-18 and 18-19 at once. So they're asking for information in this particular manner. This is ADT02, where they're going to kind of an audit report, we can say. This is like an audit report, which department would be giving at the time of conclusion of the audit. This is what they need to give within that 30 days time limit. Now, certain aspects that we must know, in handling, while handling the departmental audit, or while we are, first and foremost important thing is cooperating with the audit team, which I've already talked about and not repeat that same thing again. Keeping the entire information ready. Again, I've talked about this particular aspect, being organized in our books, records, documents, whatever that are there. Seek adjournment if information document is not ready. Now, this is another important tool which we fail to understand. If you don't have your information ready, if you don't have your documents ready, department is asking you to come in next 2 days, don't just go. Ask for adjournment, because that is your right. And this is not what I am saying. This is exactly what is written in Maharashtra Trade Circular 13T, that asking for adjournment is a right of a taxpayer. Sometimes we are in a hurry to meet officer and understand the issue. Let me tell you, it can be problematic. You can certainly ask for adjournment. For example, at least in our office, whenever any document goes to a department, there is a 2 level of checking, because we don't want to give anything which is wrong or incorrect that can unnecessarily lead to a problem. So put up a maker checker control. In my view, a partner review or a managerial review has to go through, before the anything that goes to the department, because one thing here and there wrongly mentioned, it can be a big problem. And let me tell you one more important thing. Department has become smart. I must really appreciate the kind of officers they are also hiring. Gone are the days where you used to, give some 100, 150, 200 pages of bulk of, paper trail and dump it in their cabin, and they don't know where to start from. And you have done your duty. I have given you everything. Gone. Department is asking for soft copies. I don't want hard copies. You keep it with yourself. Don't give me PDF print and all those things. Give me Excel sheet with all narrations, all party names, all GST numbers, complete description, master records, transactional records, day books in a soft copy is what they are asking. At least what we have seen, almost everybody is preferring soft copies, and they are now trained to do some Excel mapping, VLOOKUP and various macros, other Excel tools, which helps them in doing an audit in a more analytical manner. So when you are sharing any Excel file with the officer, first you do the pre-audit and then share it. Identity of each and every member of the audit team must be verified when they are coming to the premises. It is your right. Again, it is mentioned in the circular. Additional time to be requested if not clear. Again, when department is asking for some particular information, let us say you are in front of department, he is asking for a particular transaction. You are not clear about it. Either you are not clear about the facts or you are not clear about the law. Don't conclude. Sometimes we feel that when the officer is asking, if I say I need more time, he will get doubt. How does it matter? But if you are not sure, ask for extra time. Give me time. I would have to check the documents and come back to you. Let me tell you, these are some good practices that you must follow. There is nothing wrong in that. This is exactly what we do as professionals. Seek extra time where you feel you don't know the facts. At times, the facts are always known to the client the best. Professional can be involved for authorized representative. This is, I think a lot of clients already do that. Get a pre-audit done internally. Now, this is a wonderful tool. Let me tell you, there was one of our client, what he used to do, whenever he comes to know that department is now going to do an audit, before that, they used to call us and we used to do a complete end-to-end audit and give a report, and they would do all the corrections based on our report. And when the department is coming for the audit, they are 100% confident to face the department. This is a tip that you must give your clients. Get the pre-audit done. Why? Sir, there is already 9C done, then why pre-audit is required? Let me tell you, 9C, how many of us has really applied ourselves to the context of the conceptual aspects of GST law, rules, notifications, place of supply, valuations? We've done it as a number game, as only a reconciliation exercise. If that being the case, I would certainly recommend to do a pre-audit. From a conceptual point of view, please mind, I'm telling from a conceptual point of view. Certain more aspects to be looked at, approach that one needs to follow. Payment can be made under protest or under the right to contest. Keep the issue alive. Let us say your department is identified a particular point and you are not sure that whether this would be liable tomorrow. Supreme Court is going to give a matter in your favor. If you have that feeling, for example, as good as 2 days back, there was a split judgment of the Bombay High Court in the context of intermediary, where the petitioner has challenged the very constitutionality of the intermediary. Now, who would have imagined that? So the way the judgments are coming in GST law, it is now, all assessee favorable views are being given by the High Courts and Supreme Courts. So what is important is that if you have a doubt, pay under protest and keep your issue alive. Let the show cause notice be there. Whenever the High Court is going to bring up any favorable judgment will come, you immediately file a refund application for that matter. Of course, it has to be within a time limit. So, or if a notice has come, well and good. But if the notice has not come, then you can just file a refund application. And if they reject, then anyway, you have a show cause notice in your hand to keep your issue alive. This is extremely important. But then you cannot say that, no, I will not go for a refund. I will not take the show cause notice. Let some big company, Reliance will file sometime. We will get a High Court order from Reliance. That time we will go for refund. You cannot go. You have to win your own battle. This is what Supreme Court has told in the case of Mafatlal Industries. Somebody else's judgment you cannot use. Very important. If department asks for original, sometimes we see department ask, I want to see all the original invoices. That time we can certainly give sample with backed up by a CA certificate that this has been verified. So these are the approaches that can be looked at, in handling department. Unofficial demands, again, very practical issue. They don't want to give anything in writing. You reverse this input tax credit right now. So many number of times we have seen this kind of issue in an excise department, excise audit, service tax audit. Without putting it in writing, they would come to audit and they will ask for reversal of 5 lakhs, 10 lakhs, 20 lakhs input tax credit, SENVAT credit, just like that. And mind you, taxpayers used to do that. Forget about reversing in that particular financial year. From that financial year, next financial year, they will never take that credit. Can you imagine the amount of loss which the organizations must have faced? And I'll tell you one irony. In that organization where we have done the audit, even to pass a check of more than 5,000, it has to go through the highest level of authority, as a matter of authorization. But to reverse an input tax credit or SENVAT credit of 15 lakh rupees, nobody in the organization knows. Why? We feel that input tax credit is not cash. But let me tell you, input tax credit is hard cash. It is a hard cash. So if department is asking for, any aggressive officer is coming unofficially asking for reversal without giving in writing, and if you have to reverse, let me tell you that you are forced to reverse. First of all, you should not reverse. But if you are forced to reverse it. immediately put everything in writing. This is exactly what we used to do. Put the entire event, what has happened that day, right from start to the end in writing, and submit one letter to them and reclaim that credit. Put it in the letter, we are reclaiming the credit. This is exactly, this is not correct, and whatever. Gujarat High Court has told that you cannot demand money or do the recovery under coercion or under harassment. Extremely important. Oral directions for payment reversals. This is exactly what I told. Suggested to keep everything in writing. If they are not giving in writing, you submit information in writing. Type of replies given during the audit would help keeping the foundation. When the audit report comes, see, this is the fact-finding time. Don't lose out on your facts. If department is raising a particular issue, it is our duty to check the relied upon documents. What are the documents they have relied upon? From where did they got these documents? Is that correct? I'll tell you, as simple as interest calculation also department will do wrong. In one of our client case, department came with the interest calculation of 30 lakh rupees. When we recalculated the interest as per the provisions of the law, it went down to 21 lakh rupees, 10 lakhs of saving for the client. So what is important is that at the time when we are replying to the departmental audit findings, that is the foundation. Make sure you have verified all the facts, and that first reply should be unambiguous and very, very clear to the point. Or if that first reply is incorrect, where you are accepted something, you are only making your case very complicated for the further this thing. Certain aspects about departmental communication. As an associate, you can certainly give the information even through email, which has got a legal recognition. But very important, department cannot say that the letter or the document is set to be served when they have just given you email or just uploaded on the portal. Why? Because there is a section for common portal. Common portal is to file returns. Common portal is to do the registration. It is to make the payment of taxes. You cannot say that documents and everything, whatever is uploaded in common portal, it is as good as served. In my view, it will be quashed by the courts. Department has to give a registered post with the proper acknowledgement that it has been served. So very, very important. Section 169 is something that we need to note. Telephone communications, not at all preferable. Even if by chance you had to have some telephone communication with the officer, put that in writing and submit a letter to department. Letters from department, if they come, keep the envelope very safe in the file, because that is the date on which it is served. And whatever the timelines that you need to follow, it is from that date, not the date which is written on the letter. The postal date, the courier date is more important, let me tell you. Letters to department, whatever you are issuing, ask for acknowledgement. Take department's chapa, take that acknowledgement. Very, very important. I'll tell you how this is useful. When we do the departmental audit, when the department does the departmental audit, and you are giving, let's say, A, B, C, D, E information you have given to department, and they did not find any issue after you have given the information. Next time on the same issue, they have found an issue in the next financial year, and they would say that it is a fraud, collusion, misstatement, and suppression. You can always say that the extended period of limitation will not be applicable. Penalties will not be applicable, because we have never suppressed the information. All this information was already given to you in the previous financial year. And here is the acknowledgement. But what do? Many times we have seen, when the department has come for audit, what they will ask for hundreds of information, and we are just giving the information without taking the acknowledgement of what we have already given. Whatever information you give, note down, take the sign of the officer. Sir, it is our internal SOP that we need to take the signatures. Unless you give sign, we will not be able to give the information. Or submit by RPAD to the department, or take that acknowledgement of the department. This documentation is going to help you against suppression cases in future. DIN to be quoted. There is already circular 122. If it goes on to say, I think circular 127 or 128 was another circular in this regard, where it says that if the DIN is not quoted, this is exactly the wordings. The document to be treated as invalid and deemed to have been never issued. So it means that if you get a particular document from a department that is a central authorities which does not have a DIN, you can simply throw it in dustbin. That is the authenticity of DIN. Visit by department. If department is visiting to the assessee's premises, Make sure your attendance register or whatever is there at the security gate register, capture the details on the dates on which they are visited. Of course, visit to department, I would say avoid as much as possible. Certain issues I would like to highlight. First and fundamental issue is this division of power between central and state. Somebody may ask, sir, my registration has gone with state, but why center is doing departmental audit? Somebody may ask, sir, my registration has gone with center, why state is doing departmental audit? Are they authorized? How do you know where your client's registration has been gone? You can just log into the gst.gov.in. There will be administrative office. That administrative office is the office where your jurisdiction has fallen. How they will identify whether it is center or state? They will do a lottery. They will do a lottery, which is just a stratified sampling method. Through a computer, they will select, okay, this will go to center, this will go to state. What is important is that what is seen, somebody who is having an administration control of center, state is doing the departmental audit. Somebody who is having an administration control by the state, center is doing the departmental audit. You all must be knowing that under service tax, there is already matter pending with the Supreme Court, and which was already quashed by Delhi High Court and Calcutta High Court, wherein they have told that departmental audit is illegal. Illegal. The rule is beyond the act. Then they later amended the rule. Then they told even after amendment, the rule is not giving the power to do the audit. This is what Delhi High Court has told under service tax. So the important point is that there is a circular number 1/2017 issued September 2017 by the GST Council. And let me tell you, that was the first circular issued by the GST Council, where they have clearly divided the roles, and that circular categorically uses the word all administrative powers. All administrative powers relating to that SSC is vested with the state. Then how can center do the departmental audit? The fundamental question that we must raise. It is a big time jurisdiction issue in my view. When GST Council has given this particular thing, which is a constitutional body, in my view, act cannot go beyond the strictures of the constitution. So this is extremely important that you must verify. You can simply log in and you will come to know where the this thing is falling. Hard copy versus soft copy. I've already discussed this aspect. Soft copy also we need to give if they demand. If anything is incorrectly reported in the course of departmental audit, it is our duty to verify that information, documents, facts, the relied upon documents, and put it in writing the correct thing what according to us is to be mentioned. Very important, another aspect is that, let us say on a particular subject, department has already verified. Can they again verify the same thing as a part of audit? In my view, no. For example, let us say department at the time of giving the refund, the correctness of the refund claim, is it been verified or not? Yes or no? Yes, 90% refund is given just like that, and after that 10% refund is given after verifying. Once they have already verified that refund, can they again take up this matter in the audit? In my view, no. In service tax, there was a categoric circular in this regard that you cannot do the manual scrutiny if audit is done. Or if audit is done, you again cannot go and do the assessment. How many times you would like to do it? On the same subject matter, they cannot touch upon. This is being written in section 5 of the CGST Act. Of course, this is written from the context of one state has done, center cannot be done. In my view, this can be stretched to even these kind of cases. 2A, 3B reconciliation. How many times they will do the same thing? Sometimes center is asking, sometimes state is asking. 100 times they will do the same thing. And again, during departmental audit, they will do the same thing. DGARM will again do the same thing. So this is certainly not, I would say, one nation, one tax, because the entire crux or the fear which the taxpayer was having is that, okay, if there are two officers, I should not be, having the vulnerabilities of facing both the officers and doing the same thing multiple times. This is exactly was the apprehension of states when the GST was getting implemented. And this is the assurance which center gave to the state that there would be division of the taxpayers. But today we are seeing a complete mockery, open mockery of that particular circular of GST Council. Verification of the transitional credits, whether they can do. Can they verify transitional credits as a part of GST audit? Fundamental question is transitional credit be called as a SENVAT credit or an input tax credit? It is a SENVAT credit which has been transitioned. And let me tell you, this is not what I am saying. This is what department circular is itself saying, which was issued in November 2017 in the context of refunds. So when it comes to denying the refunds, department is saying that transition credit is not input tax credit, hence we will not give the refund. But when it comes to verification of the audit, they are saying transition credit also input tax credit, I will verify everything. So we have to take a stand. Department has to take a stand. Either transitional credit is an input tax credit or it is not an input tax credit. Let me tell you, there is a circular which says that transition credit is not an input tax credit. I've already talked about the refunds part. Can department do the audit of your imports? Valuation, rate of tax, classification of your imports, the IGST element of the import transactions. In my view, no, because let me tell you, the levy, although is under IGST Act, but the administration and collection is being given to the customs. Once the administration and the collection mechanism has been given to the customs, under GST audit, department cannot verify the correctness, completeness, valuation of your import transaction, even if there is an IGST in that. Very important. Rate of interest, whether to pay at 18% or 24%, please don't pay at 24%. Why? No, sir, there is a section which says that if the input tax credit is wrongly availed, then 24% needs to be paid. What does that section say? That section says that if it is wrongly availed, and that section would take you to section 41, which talks about matching and mismatch. And that section will take you to the provisions of your GSTR 1, GSTR 2, and GSTR 3, where department was supposed to tell you what is matched, what is not mismatched, and both of us will know. But did that happen? That never happened. When the very structure itself was not there, where is the question of 24% interest coming in? There is no question of 24% interest. Don't pay interest at 24%. Interest at the most is payable only at 18%. Interest at the most is only payable on net value, not on gross value. There is a retrospective amendment in the CGST Act. Very, very important. Sir, I already have amount lying in my electronic credit ledger at that particular point of time, which is there all along. Do I need to still pay interest? You need not pay interest. You are not required to pay interest. Sir, on RCM transaction, do I need to pay interest? Yes, on RCM, you need to pay interest. But then in case of RCM, if I was already having a balance in my electronic cash ledger, do I need to pay interest? No, you need not pay interest. We have Madras High Court judgment. We have JK Tyres, a larger bench judgment on this particular matter. Karnataka High Court on the similar matter under the erstwhile law. So very, very important that we must know. Sir, when the department does the audit, can they, do we also need to pay penalty? No, unless there is a fraud, suppression, collusion, misstatement. There is no question of penalty being paid. Penalty is a positive action of suppression. Please understand. Of course, department, in every letter or every show cause notice, they would vaguely put that all assessees have done the fraud. But is that correct? Can we say all assessees are only, are doing fraud? So penalty is certainly not payable unless the notice is issued under section 74 and assessee agrees to the fraud. Let me tell you, if you are paying penalty, indirectly you are agreeing that you have done a fraud. So we need to be very mindful of suggesting our taxpayers to pay penalty. 90% of cases that goes to the tribunal on penalty, let me tell you, come in the favor of the taxpayer. It comes in the favor of a taxpayer. If no audit objection in a particular year, next year I can certainly say the penalty should not be levied. There is a Supreme Court judgment on this particular matter. I think Wazir Sultan. So here, If let us say I have given all the information to the department when they did the audit of financial year 17-18, that time they did not identify anything. Next year they are identifying a particular point. So can department say that there is a suppression? Certainly not, because this was already given in 17-18. There is no suppression in this regard. You have already verified these things in financial year 17-18. It was not pointed out. Very, very important point. Please pay attention. We have seen that when the department does the audit, and let's say if something comes out in the audit, department is asking assessees to pay this amount in cash. You cannot utilize input tax credit at the time when the department is coming for audit and asking for demand. Absolutely wrong. Let us say even if the demand is 10 crores and you have an input tax credit lying in your electronic credit ledger, you can simply reverse your input tax credit of 10 crores, the amount is paid. You need not pay in cash. Very, very important. You can utilize input tax credit. Time limit for show cause notice. I will not go into the detail of it. These are the numbers. For 17-18, they have time till November 2022. Of course, department would say everybody is doing fraud and they will take the matter till August 2024. And this is for, so you can now imagine GST, which got introduced in 2017, which was supposed to have a time limit of 5 years, has become what, 8 years? 7 years. So this is not correct. But then they have linked the time limit with the annual return. So when annual return itself is filed after 2 years, the 2 years is anyway gone, and from there you are calculating another 5 years. In case of denial of refunds, the time limit is from the date of sanction. This is very important. Any tax liability and interest payable under the audit, whether can be recovered from the recipient customer. Very, very important point. Please take a note of this. Let us say that I have collected GST from at 12% from a customer, but it is liable at 18%. And I came to know about this point only when department has brought this audit, because there was an interpretation or whatever. You all know automobile industry is facing a big time problem about whether the parts and components are 18% or 28%. There is a negative judgment of Supreme Court in GS Auto. Recently, there is a another negative judgment in case of Westing Saxby, and there is a positive judgment of Supreme Court on the same matter. In my view, it is only liable for 18%, but that is a very big time issue. But let us say if a genuine case where it is liable for 28%, but you have wrongly paid at 18%, the question is, can you collect the balance 10% from the customer today when the department is conducting the audit? In my view, yes, you can collect the balance 10% from the customer and pay to the department. Whether this balance 10% will be eligible as input tax credit to the customer, answer is yes. How are you saying there is a time limit for taking the credit? Please understand, you can raise a debit note. And if you raise a debit note today, section 16, subsection 4 is now been amended in this particular Finance Act in Finance Act 2020, and wherein they have told that the time limit has to be looked at from the date of debit note, not from the original invoice date. Extremely important. If I pay tax under reverse charge, can I take the input tax credit? Certainly, yes, you can take the input tax credit if you are paying anything under reverse charge in the course of departmental audit. How? What is the document that you would issue when you are paying tax under reverse charge? You need to issue a self-invoicing, correct? Especially when it is from unregistered person. When are you issuing a self-invoice? Today. Which section says this? Section 31, subsection 3. So what should be the time limit? The time limit has to start from the date of self-invoicing, not from the vendor's invoice. Vendor's invoice does not have any relevance for the purpose of reverse charge. Please understand, this is exactly the legal provision of the law. Incorrect type of tax paid. I have paid IGST instead of CGST, SGST. Now department is asking me to pay IGST, CGST, SGST again. You pay CGST, SGST, you can immediately claim refund of IGST. Whether interest is required to be paid, no interest is required to be paid. This is exactly section 77 of the CGST Act says. You need not pay any interest because you've already paid IGST, correct? So again, interest is not required to be paid. Assessee is not having money. He wants to pay to the department, but he does not have money today. Very much possible. Today, a lot of companies are facing financial problems. Let me tell you, there is a provision, section 81 which provides for paying the taxes in installments. Of course, you need to pay interest, but there is a provision you can go to commissioner and ask for paying the taxes in installment. There is also a mechanism to ask commissioner to give some time to make the payment of taxes. We have applied this kind of installment schemes and we're able to get the installment scheme for the clients in service tax regime. There is a provision available in the GST law. Whether we can ask for installment even after the department has given the audit report, yes, you can ask. Whether audit team can seize the goods, assets, I told they cannot do investigation in the name of audit. Whether physical verification of stock, no. Residents, no. C&AG is not considered as a proper officer to do the audit. So these are some important points we've already covered in the past. SCN is to be handled by the adjudicating authority. There is an important legal maxim which says nemo judex in sua causa. Now it's a legal maxim, a Latin name. What it says is that you cannot be a judge in your own case. How can you be a judge in your own case? When department is issuing the departmental audit report, there ends the story. The matter further cannot be done by the departmental officers. It cannot be done by the Director General of Audit. The matter will go to the range. And then the show cause notice will be issued by the range officer, not by the audit commissionerate. Very, very important. Internal audit report, certainly department can ask for. One fundamental aspect or important aspect which I would like to focus upon or bring attention to is what we are seeing is that in the course of departmental audit, substantial data is being asked. Give me this ratio, that analysis, this analysis. Big questionnaire is being given to the taxpayer. And they are asking all these details to be done by the taxpayer and share it with the officers. Absolutely wrong. This is just nothing but the delegation of authority. All this needs to be done by the department and they're getting it done from you. And this is again not what I am saying. This is exactly what has been mentioned in the departmental audit manual para 5.1.2 and para 5.2.1. Now let us look at it, what it says. It says a substantial amount of data is already available in GST network. And why do you want to ask? GST return, GSTR1, GSTR3B, GSTR2A, they are asking. It is already there with the department. Some of the data like those contained in the annual financial statements keep changing every year. Utility named taxpayer at glance. There is a utility called TAG, taxpayer at glance, containing all available information of registered person will be accessible to the auditor. Who is auditor? Department. Whenever GST audit of a registered person is taken up, the audit team conducting the audit should review the data already available. The audit team should review the data already available and the data that is not available and collect the information not available and update the data of a registered person. Only the information which is not available, they should ask, not the entire information. Audit para talks about verification of RCM liability on unregistered persons, which was later removed in October 2017. In my view, even if they try to tinker with that, they cannot because it is illegal to collect on that particular aspect. The amendment has to be read retrospective. Very, very important point. Please pay attention. This 2A and 3B has become a one big time problem for almost all the taxpayers. Now, this is exactly what is mentioned in the departmental audit manual. This is mentioned in the departmental audit manual. Please pay attention. For verifying the gap in ITC availment as identified in para 5.5.4, the auditor, that is department, should carry out a test check of invoices of such suppliers whose details are not figuring in GSTR 2A and identify some of such suppliers with high tax value and get the particulars of tax payment verifiers at the supplier's end. Extremely important. And this is exactly what Madras High Court has told, that if the supplier has not furnished the information, how can department ask a recipient to pay the tax? You go to the supplier. This is what departmental audit manual is saying. Now, let me give you an example. On a transaction of 100 rupees, if department is taking 18 rupees from the recipient, department is also going to take same 18 rupees even from the supplier. Is department not collecting 36 rupees on the same transaction? And if you add interest and penalties, it becomes equal to 100 rupees. This is absolutely incorrect. In my view, GSTR 2A has to be seriously looked upon. Sir, there is an amendment in the Act. Let me tell you, even after amendment in the Act, it can be challenged. And there is a way to handle this GSTR 2A matters. Now, see, in the course of departmental audit, they are asking a lot of information. I thought as a part of this PPT, I should give what all information they are asking so that you can look at this PPT and suggest your clients and prepare all that information in advance. I would not go into each of this information because, you know, that would not be for this topic. That would totally go into the documentation aspect of it. But, you know, it is very self-explanatory. I have given this as a part of PPT. So, you know, all this data which has been asked in the course of departmental audit. Annexure 1, Annexure 4, these are the various ratios, master files, comparative charts. Unfortunately, they are asking associates to do all this. Questionnaires. You know, this is exactly what Maharashtra circular says. You know, all this information. So look at this and, you know, keep ready for all your clients. Annual reports, financials, workings, 99C, accounts, records, documents, credit notes, e-way bill. I do not want to get into all these things because you all know it's quite self-explanatory. So what is the environment in future going to be? In my view, in future, the system is going to be more transparent because of, thanks to electronic way of doing things. More accountability would be there for chartered accountants and even for tax officers. Information nowadays is available on the go. So, you know, our responsibility further increases while advising our clients. Certainly with emergence of technology, I would say that the ethical way of doing practice is going to increase. And with tax, you know, adjudication mechanism more moving towards a faceless system, in my view, the compliance and the hassles which were there in the past would reduce. Of course, one may say that, sir, at one stage, income tax is going faceless. On the other hand, you are saying in GST officer is going to come to the factory, you know, where this two wings of the same ministry are moving towards. Of course, this is one of the dichotomy which is there. But then there was a news coming back that in GST also they would go for a faceless thing. That was only news. There is no official talk about it. But I feel that in future GST may also go in the similar direction. We have seen customs going in the faceless mechanism. But then we need to understand that GST, unlike income tax, is a transactional tax. So how fruitful it would be, it only times would say. But certainly, I see that the corruption and both from assessee's point of view, even from departmental point of view, is going to reduce in times to come. With this, I would conclude my discussion today on how to face departmental audit. So I hope that this session has been useful to all of you and added value to your understanding. I would like to again thank the branch for giving me this opportunity to take this session to the entire team of Pune branch. Thank you very much. And thank you all for patient listening. So we can take up questions if
there are a few questions in the question and answers. Would you like to take them?
Absolutely.
Well, there are about 8-9 questions. Please.
Yeah. So Bhavesh Maniyar ji says that many times they do verify inventory, how we should handle such situation. I've already told you, if they verify inventory, you can just quote a particular section that as per the definition of it, they're not entitled to do that. You have law to support with you, don't need anything else. Jayant Kumar Ratilal Shah ji says that audit notice for FY 17-18 and 18-19 received in July 20. What is the time limit to complete audit? So that's what I mentioned, sir. The time limit starts from the date of commencement of audit. The commencement of audit date is being mentioned to be the date when they either do the physical verification of at the premises or date of giving all the information to the taxpayer. So unfortunately, they have kept it very vague. But then in my view, once you have provided all the information to the officer, you can say that audit is commenced. You can put it down in writing as well. Madhusudan Jain ji asked, if 15 days not given by them, what should be our stand against this? we should certainly ask for it. We should not submit the information. You have the law to support. So this should be our stand. See, our stand should be very clear. We should follow the law. That's all. If in audit report HSN code is wrongly mentioned, then how should it be corrected? Audit report, I'm not sure whether you are telling about 9C audit report or the departmental audit report. In my view, see, if it is HSN issue or something, it's just a procedural lapse and does not lead to any big time issue, is what I would say. Unless you see that because of the HSN wrongly mentioned, if there is a tax to be paid, then it is an issue. But if there is no tax, there is no problem, I would say. Audit notice received